ever attain. The unoffendable life is not for the weak. It is for those who are determined to finish their assignment on earth with their joy, their focus, and their destiny fully intact. Are you ready to live that life? Then rise up, my friend. Your time is too valuable. Your purpose is too great. Your God is too faithful. Live unoffendable. And watch how heaven begins to trust you with greater things. When you discover the specific reason for your existence, something supernatural happens to your emotional ecosystem. You become immunized against the trivial infections that plague the masses. Purpose acts as a divine filter, separating what deserves your energy from what deserves your dismissal. The man who wakes up every morning knowing exactly why he was born carries a shield that deflects offenses before they can penetrate his heart. He does not waste precious moments analyzing insults because his eyes are fixed on a finish line that matters more than the opinions of spectators. Clarity of purpose creates a fortress around your soul. When you understand that you were placed on this earth for a specific assignment that only you can fulfill, you realize that every second spent in anger is a second stolen from your destiny. The offended person is always a distracted person, and the distracted person is always a delayed person. But the individual who has captured the vision of their life's work becomes like a runner in a race who cannot afford to stop and argue with the crowd throwing stones from the sidelines. The stones may fly, but they cannot stop the runner who knows the prize waiting at the end is worth more than the pain of the moment. Consider the nature of a person without purpose. They wander through life like a ship without a rudder, tossed by every wind of criticism and battered by every wave of misunderstanding. Because they have no central mission to anchor them, they seek validation from every human being they encounter. When that validation is withheld or attacked, their entire world shakes. But the purpose-driven individual draws validation from the one who gave the assignment, not from those watching the assignment. They understand that offense is often the tax placed upon the great by the small, the cost of doing significant work in a world threatened by significance. Your purpose creates boundaries around your emotions. It establishes what I call authorized entry into your inner life. When you are consumed with building what you were born to build, you simply do not have room in your heart for bitterness. The architecture of a great destiny leaves no space for the clutter of resentment. Every room in your emotional house is occupied by vision, passion, and determination. There is no vacant lot where offense can settle and build a home. The person with purpose is too busy constructing their future to be bothered, demolishing their enemies. Purpose gives you telescopic vision. You begin to see beyond the immediate irritation to the eternal implication. That difficult person who insulted you today will be forgotten in 5 years, but the work you were called to do will outlast your lifetime. Purpose teaches you to measure offenses against the scale of eternity, and when measured this way, they are found embarrassingly light. The weight of your calling crushes the weight of your offenses. This is why the greatest men and women in history were able to endure slander, betrayal, and rejection without being destroyed. They were held together by a sense of destiny that was larger than their discomfort. Purpose transforms you from a reactor to a creator. Instead of responding to what others do to you, you are proactively doing what you were sent to do. You move from defensive living to offensive living. Not offensive in the sense of being rude, but offensive in the sense of advancing, taking ground, and pushing forward. When you are on the offensive of your assignment, the defensive walls of anger become unnecessary. You are too busy advancing to be annoyed. You are too focused on the mission to be distracted by the noise. Purpose, therefore, is not merely a nice idea to write in a journal. It is the ultimate defense mechanism for the human spirit, the invisible armor that keeps your heart pure, your mind clear, and your time maximized while others are still trying to figure out why they are alive. Talent will open doors for you, but only self-leadership will keep you in the room. You must understand that the greatest form of leadership is not the ability to mobilize multitudes, nor the capacity to accumulate wealth, nor the gift of oratory that sways the masses. The highest and most difficult form of leadership is the governance of your own spirit. A man who can lead a corporation but cannot lead his own anger is not a leader. He is merely a talented individual waiting for his own destruction. The person who can control others but cannot control himself is not walking in authority. He is walking in deception. And that deception will eventually collapse the very empire his talent built. Consider the tragedy of gifted individuals who never reached their destination because they allowed someone else's words to detonate their emotions. They possess the intellectual capacity to solve complex problems, the creative genius to birth revolutionary ideas, and the charisma to draw crowds, yet they lack the basic internal infrastructure to handle a sarcastic remark, a sideways glance, or a misunderstood intention. Their talent made them visible, but their inability to lead themselves made them vulnerable. When you cannot govern your own reactions, you become a puppet on the strings of anyone who knows how to push your buttons. The man who can make you angry controls you, and if someone controls you, they own you, regardless of how talented you may be. True leadership begins with the word no spoken to yourself. It is the ability to look at your own emotions, acknowledge their screaming demands, and choose a higher response than what your flesh is demanding in the moment. When someone offends you, your natural talent might give you the wit to destroy them with your words, but your self-leadership gives you the wisdom to remain silent. When betrayal comes, your talent might provide you the strategic ability to retaliate, but your self-leadership provides the character to forgive. This is why the ancient texts declare that he who rules his own spirit is greater than he who takes a city. For cities can be conquered with swords, but the human heart can only be conquered by disciplined will. Self-leadership establishes the throne of your life. When you are the king of your own soul, you decide who enters your gates and who is turned away. You do not allow every irritating person to set up camp in your mind and disturb your peace. You do not permit every careless comment to evict you from your position of authority. You remain seated on the throne of your calling, governing your responses with the same gravity that a ruler governs a nation. Because you understand that an ungoverned reaction is an abdication of your throne. The moment you lose your temper, you have surrendered your crown to your enemy. The moment you maintain your composure in the face of provocation, you have demonstrated the regal nature of your true identity. Remember this eternal principle. Your gifts will make room for you, but only your character will preserve that room. Talent is potential, but self-leadership is the protection of that potential. The world is filled with gifted people who live in emotional poverty, brilliant minds trapped in childish reactions, and anointed hands that are chained by unforgiveness. Do not let your talent become your tomb. Master yourself. Govern your emotions. Rule your reactions. For when you can stand in the midst of fire without being burned by anger, when you can walk through the valley of offense without picking up the weapons of retaliation, then and only then have you become the leader you were born to be. When your identity is constructed by the hands of your Creator rather than the opinions of your contemporaries, you develop a spiritual immunity that cannot be compromised by human criticism. You become like a fortress built upon bedrock. The winds may howl, the storms may rage, and the rains may beat against your walls, but you cannot be shaken because your foundation is not situational. The person who knows who they are in the mind of God carries a vaccination against the diseases of rejection, slander, and disrespect that infect those who have built their self-worth on the shifting sands of public approval. To be immune is to be untouchable by the pathogens of offense. When you understand that your value was established before you ever took your first breath, that you were not an accident of biology but a deliberate act of divine intention, you stop allowing temporary people to make permanent adjustments to your self-perception. The opinions of men become data, not definition. You can hear their words, process their criticism, and even extract wisdom from their correction without allowing their malice to penetrate the core of who you know yourself to be. This is the freedom of the identity-anchored life. You are no longer for sale to the highest bidder of approval, nor are you vulnerable to the lowest bidder of insult. Consider the difference between a crown made of paper and a crown made of gold. The paper crown loses its shape in the rain. The gold crown is refined by fire. When your identity is rooted in what people think of you, you are wearing paper, and every drop of criticism causes you to wilt and crumble. But when your identity is rooted in what heaven has spoken over you, you are wearing something eternal, and the heat of persecution only proves your authenticity. You do not need to defend a crown that God has placed upon your head. You simply need to wear it with the dignity of one who knows the King. This immunity operates as a selective membrane around your soul, permitting nourishment to enter while blocking toxins. You can receive love without becoming addicted to it, And you can receive hatred without being poisoned by it, because neither defines you. The person who does not know who they are becomes whoever others say they are today. They are chameleons, changing colors with every environment, exhausted by the performance, anxious about the next evaluation. But the individual anchored in divine identity is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, regardless of the audience. They do not rise and fall with the stock market of human opinion. They remain steady, consistent, and unbothered, because their name is written in a book that cannot be edited by social media, boardroom politics, or the whispered gossip of the neighborhood. Your immunity is your inheritance. When you accept the identity that your Creator assigned to you, you stop negotiating your worth in the marketplace of human acceptance. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop apologizing for occupying space that heaven has declared belongs to you. And in that place of security, offense finds no foothold. It is like throwing stones at a mountain. The mountain does not flinch, does not retaliate, does not explain. It simply remains what it is. Be the mountain. Let them throw their words. Your identity has already been signed, sealed, and delivered by the only one whose signature matters. Time is the only commodity you possess that is truly non-negotiable. The sacred currency of your existence, minted in the treasury of heaven and entrusted to your stewardship for a brief and fleeting season. You can lose money and recover it through diligence, lose relationships and rebuild them through forgiveness, lose reputation and restore it through integrity. But time that is spent is gone forever into the irretrievable vault of eternity, never to be refunded, never to be recycled for a second chance, never to be replenished once the final grain falls through the hourglass. This is why anger is the most expensive transaction you will ever make. It is the squandering of sacred currency on trivial purchases that return no value to your life, the trading of diamonds for dust, the investment of your immortal soul into the temporary satisfaction of retaliation. Every minute you spend in the toxic furnace of offense is a minute stolen from your destiny, deducted from your assignment, and robbed from the generation waiting for your contribution. A generation that will suffer because you allowed a stranger to steal what was meant for their healing. The man who allows another human being to control his time through provocation is not just emotionally immature. He is spiritually irresponsible, mishandling the sacred trust of hours that God has counted out for him with infinite precision and absolute intentionality. Consider the mathematics of eternity with sober calculation. You have been allocated a specific number of breaths, a predetermined measure of mornings, a fixed account of sunsets that are drawing down with every tick of the clock, each one a sacred trust to be stewarded with the gravity of a high priest tending the holy fire. When you spend 30 minutes rehearsing an insult in your mind, you have not just wasted 30 minutes. You have sacrificed 30 minutes of creativity that could have birthed solutions, 30 minutes of innovation that could have changed industries, 30 minutes of intercession that could have shifted atmospheres and altered the destinies of nations. The offense you are nursing is costing you the very time required to build the legacy that will outlast your critics, the very hours necessary to construct the monument of your life's work. While you are plotting revenge in the dark chambers of your imagination, your purpose is standing outside, knocking, waiting for you to open the door of your attention. While you are analyzing the anatomy of betrayal with microscopic obsession, your vision is delaying its manifestation. While you are sulking over rejection, your destiny is being postponed and time. The strict and unyielding treasurer refuses to pause the clock for your emotional recovery or grant extensions for your grievances. Time is sacred because it is the consecrated container in which destiny is shaped, the holy ground upon which purpose is built, the sanctified space where the eternal breaks into the temporal. You cannot fulfill your assignment without the raw material of time. And every second given to anger is raw material wasted. Every hour given to bitterness is holy ground profaned. God does not give you extra hours to compensate for the time you lost being offended. He does not extend your lifespan to make up for the years you spent in the prison of unforgiveness. When the curtain closes on your life and the account is required, the only question that will matter is whether you maximize the sacred trust of time entrusted to you, or whether you allowed thieves disguised as enemies to break into your house and steal your most precious jewels while you watched in passive agreement. Guard your time as you would guard the ark of your covenant, for indeed your time is the ark that carries your purpose. Your life is measured not in years but in moments, and every moment spent in peace is a moment invested in eternity, while every moment spent in anger is a moment bankrupting your future and robbing your children of their inheritance. Treat time as the sacred trust it is, consecrated and set apart for holy use, and you will discover that offense becomes too costly to afford, too expensive to entertain, and too wasteful to consider. Forgiveness that waits for the heart to feel warm is not forgiveness at all. It is merely the anesthesia of time wearing off the wound, a passive erosion rather than an active conquest. True forgiveness is a sovereign decision issued from the throne of your will long before the offender ever approaches the gates of your emotions, a preemptive decree that establishes the boundaries of your inner territory and declares that no trespasser will be permitted to occupy the sacred ground of your peace. When you practice pre-forgiveness, you are not suggesting that the injury was insignificant or that the betrayal lacked weight. Rather, you are announcing that your authority to choose peace is greater than their power to inflict pain, that your decision to release precedes their attempt to bind, and that you have already settled the case in the court of your heart before the evidence of their offense is even presented. This is the distinction between childhood and maturity, between being governed by fluctuating feelings and being governed by unwavering will, between reacting like a victim and reigning like a king. The immature believer waits for the emotion of forgiveness to bubble up like a natural spring. But emotions are treacherous servants that follow the weather of circumstance rather than the compass of conviction. They arrive late to the meeting of maturity and often bring excuses for why justice demands retention rather than release. If you wait until you feel like forgiving, you will spend your life in chains. Because feelings are the last to board the train of decision, arriving at the destination only after the will has already purchased the ticket and chosen the route. Pre-forgiveness understands that love is not a sentiment but a commitment, that mercy is not a mood but a mandate, and that the preservation of your own destiny requires you to sign the release papers before the crime is committed, clearing the ledger of your soul so that when the blow comes, and it will come, you have already processed the paperwork of liberation, and there is no desk at which bitterness can sit to conduct its business. Consider the man who wakes each morning having already decided that no human being will possess the power to make him a prisoner today. He has issued the executive order of pardon before the sun has issued its first ray, extending amnesty to the future failures of those who will cross his path, not because they deserve it, but because his freedom is too costly to be held hostage by their development. This is not weakness masquerading as spirituality. It is strategic warfare against the kingdom of darkness that knows your destiny is too important to be delayed by the slow machinery of emotional recovery. When you pre-forgive, you disarm the devil of his favorite weapon, the sudden offense that catches you unprepared and derails your assignment for hours, days, or decades. You become unoffendable not because you have no nerves to touch, but because you have already anesthetized the wound with the oil of decision. Your will is the highest faculty of your humanity, the seat of your dominion, the place where you bear the image of God most clearly as a being who chooses rather than merely reacts. To forgive by decision is to ascend to your throne and govern your own atmosphere. To forgive by emotion is to remain on the floor, tossed by every wind of hormonal fluctuation and psychological trigger. Pre-forgiveness is the mature acknowledgement that while you cannot control what others do to you, you absolutely control what you do with what they do. And you have decided beforehand that your response will be mercy, your posture will be release, and your heart will remain light, regardless of how heavy their actions become. This is the only way to live unbothered, by deciding that forgiveness is not a reaction to their repentance, but a revelation of your royalty, a daily choice to keep your spirit clear, your hands open, and your destiny unencumbered by the debts others owe you, but can never fully pay. You stand today at a fork in the road that will determine everything you leave behind when you exit this earth. One path leads into the consuming fire of offense, where you will spend your sacred years counting wounds, nursing grievances, and building monuments to your own victimization until your time expires and your music dies, trapped inside your offended soul. The other path leads into the spacious place of the unoffendable life, where you walk in unassailable authority, where your peace is not for sale at any price, and where your destiny unfolds with relentless momentum because nothing and no one has been permitted to steal your focus. Choose this day whom you will serve. The God of retaliation that promises satisfaction but delivers slavery, or the God of your purpose who demands your emotional purity as the price of your power. The generation waiting for your book, your invention, your leadership, and your liberation cannot afford for you to be distracted by the immaturity of those around you. Your children cannot afford for you to be emotionally bankrupt because someone bruised your ego. Your future cannot afford the luxury of your grudges. You were not born to react. You were born to create, to build, to heal, and to reign. An offended you is an imprisoned you, but an unoffended